And welcome back to the Steve MALZBER Show, ladies and gentlemen. And as promised, we're joined by Greg Abbott, the Attorney General of the state of Texas, and I believe the next governor of the state of Texas. Mr. Attorney General, welcome back to the show, sir.
Steve, it's great to be back with you again.
Well, thank you. Listen, I can't tell you how much this means to my sanity that you and I guess 10 other attorneys generals around the country are criticizing Barack Obama, have written a letter to Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius saying that what Barack Obama is doing with regard to the Obamacare or Affordable Health Care Act in changing the law, postponing parts of the law, granting waivers to parts of the law is illegal. I don't understand why not more Republicans haven't spoken up about this.
Well, for one, we are escalating our fight. For another, we had to deal with a procedural deadline, and that letter was dated December the 26th. And that's a hard time to get a lot of people to sign on. Some people were out of their offices. But you can count on the fact you're going to see more people rally to this cause because Americans across the country are incredibly frustrated about how the president keeps changing and altering the goalpost and the Obamacare law. You know, what we've seen time and time again is the president incapable of living within the confines of the heavy-handed law he's imposed on his fellow Americans in an effort to try to extricate himself from a political bad situation. He's changing the rules of the game. That is a fiat presidency. This president who is unconstrained by the law and is acting more like a king than he is president because it is only the Congress of the United States of America that can make laws. But here is the president who's making up the law as he goes along.
Well, Mr. Attorney General, what I meant was not that more attorneys generals hadn't signed on to the letter, although I hope that comes also. I meant for all these months that he's been doing this, I haven't heard from Republican leadership, speaking out against this. And before we get to that, let me ask you, so the letter's written. Do you have legal recourse? Do you have legal standing? When I say you, I mean as Attorney General of Texas or any of the others who signed on or who might sign on. Can you go to court? Can you do something legally to try to stop him from doing this?
Well, and that's one of the big hurdles that we are facing. One purpose of this letter is to try to very legal standing so that when we do go to court...
I'm sorry, you cut out for a second. So one purpose of the letter is to establish legal standing, you say?
That's exactly right. We are exhausting our administrative remedies under both the claim that the Obama administration is making up the rules as they go along, but also the claim that the Health and Human Services Commission, under the leadership of Secretary Sebelius, they are putting at risk the personal information of our fellow Americans by having a very unaccountable navigator system and signing people up for Obamacare in the first place. And so what we are doing is we are exhausting our administrative remedies. We're putting in what's called our comment under this comment period, and then we will be able to consider whether or not we have standing. What we strongly believe, Steve, is that if the state attorneys general do not have standing, there will be people in America. It could be patients. It could be insurance companies. It could be doctors. There's going to be someone out there. It could be employers. Someone out there is going to have standing to sue the Obama administration for the administration's disregard of the United States constitutional principles.
And, okay, now, you know, I'm sure you're well aware, sir, that this isn't the first time with regard to Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act that he has done this. He has decided in the past, whether it's easing the work requirements in the welfare reform that was negotiated so many years ago and signed by Bill Clinton, whether it's telling ICE who to deport, who not to deport, what portions of the immigration law to enforce and not to enforce, whether it was we're not going to enforce DOMA before the court ruled on it. I mean, this is common practice for him. And again, from a Republican Party in Washington, leadership in Washington, that is basically silent on this, while constitutional scholars have testified before Congress saying, you know, this is exactly, I think Jonathan Turley said, this is exactly what our founding fathers feared.
Well, you're spot on. It really is amazing. A couple of quick points about this, and that is in the response issued by the White House to our letter, Jay Carney, the spokesperson for the president, showed the arrogance of the president in the White House when he actually brought up one of the things you just said, and that is, well, the White House has established precedent for being able to skirt the law by the way that they have handled the whole immigration issue. And so it's just stunning that they double down on a completely illegal strategy. But let me mention the larger picture here.
Yeah.
If you would think about the investment community, and one reason why it costs more to invest in other countries around the globe is because there is a higher risk premium in those countries because the rule of law is not as established. It costs less to invest in the United States because historically the rule of law has been one of the most rock-solid principles in this country. Well, now the rule of law in the United States of America is becoming as wishy-washy as it is in some of these third-world countries by having a president who completely disregards the Constitution, changes the law on his own without going through the constitutional structure, having Congress and the courts being the ones who make the law and rule upon the law.
Right. So when Jay Carney says that we establish precedent by doing it, it means, well, maybe what he really is saying is, well, that's the first time we did it. Precedent in legal terms would mean that the court then signed off on it, but no court signed off on it. It's just that nobody's ever tested this stuff in court.
Right, and so the big challenge is the fact that we have an unprecedented fashion in this president. When I say unprecedented, meaning I don't know of any other president in the history of the United States of America who has disregarded the constitutional structure more than this president. And as a result, that is why these state attorneys general, including myself, are now pushing back against this administration, calling out what we consider to be their unconstitutional actions by disregarding the constitutional structure and making up the laws as they go along.
Yeah, it's sad. We're talking to Greg Abbott, the Attorney General of the state of Texas, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you to at least give a quick opinion on the U.S. Supreme Court today putting a temporary stop to gay marriage in Utah while the state appeals a decision. I mean, I think this has large ramifications because this was a unanimous decision by the U.S. Supreme Court today, and they all said halt the marriages because this judge who denied Utah's request said that the Constitution of the United States guarantees the right to same-sex marriage. And this is a big one. So this could wind up back in the U.S. Supreme Court, correct?
Well, correct. I think it will wind up back in the Supreme Court. But it seems like the lower court judge did not read the United States Supreme Court's recent decision that came out this last June. What the United States Supreme Court said, with Justice Kennedy writing the lead opinion, and that is that the issue about same-sex marriage is an issue that gets to be determined by the individual state. The United States Supreme Court be more clear about state sovereignty on this issue. And so if Utah has a law banning same-sex marriage, that law has to be honored according to the most recent United States Supreme Court decision.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. So you're gearing up for a tough governor's battle?
You know, people across the country need to know what is going on in Texas because I am gearing up for a battle for the race for governor. A lot of people take Texas for granted, thinking it's a big red state, and it is. But what they don't realize is we have in my Democrat opponent a woman who was really completely until she filibustered a bill that would have, protected life and protected the health care of women who were going through the abortion process. And she said that, cutting abortions off after 5 months was unacceptable. And so she rose to fame across the nation. Her name is Wendy Davis. And she is banking money from people in New York, in California, in Washington, D.C., and across the entire country because these people in other states want to try to turn Texas blue just like those other states. And I got to tell you, I am not going to let it happen. Texas is the last bastion of freedom in this nation. We've been the leader in the entire country for creating jobs because we have a formula, and the formula is to get government off the backs of the people. Let you lead your lives, not government. And we show that formula is a formula for success. We will be the state that champions less government, low taxes, lower regulations, but more individual liberty.
Well, listen, Mr. Attorney General, I hope you'll come back often during the course of this. And, of course, you know that whether it'll work in Texas or not, nationally, the media will turn you into the #1 villain and will turn her into some kind of hero or heroine or whatever you want to call it. So I know you're ready for that. I don't have to tell you about that. But, hey, congratulations on the letter. And I really hope somebody does take him to task in a court of law and we put a stop to this imperial presidency. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. That's Attorney General Greg Abbott of Texas, who is running for governor of Texas to succeed Governor Perry. And he, along with 10 other GOP attorneys general, have joined the chorus of some of us who are saying Obama has to stop. What he's doing by changing the Obamacare law and other laws is flatly illegal. We're coming back, folks, and when we come back, we're going to be joined by Hugh Hewitt, syndicated radio talk show host and author. He's got a new one out. We'll talk about it right here on the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.